Hi, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah. I'm with the Midwest Writing Center, and I am excited today to introduce you to Stephanie Spraggon. I did not ask you if that's how to pronounce your name. Great. Um, for folks who are unfamiliar with the program, once a week, I interview someone doing something cool with the arts or literary issues. And once a week, I give a super short lesson on something literary. Then after this interview, we'll give updates on the Midwest Writing Center, and then we'll have a free write for you to take with you as you see fit. Today's guest is, as I said, Stephanie Spraggon. She's an information services librarian at the Davenport Public Library and has been with the organization since December 2014. That is a long time. I haven't done anything since 2014. In her role for the Davenport Public Library, Stephanie co-hosts Checked In, a Davenport Public Library podcast, which, by the way, is great. Orders adult fiction and single book club books, plans programs for adults, oversees the Seed Library, also awesome. I'm going to have just so many more questions than I have planned. And manages and develops content for the Info Cafe blog, the online reading challenge, coffee break newsletter, and much more. She particularly enjoys her work with the Handicap Development Center to provide twice-a-month programming at the library for individuals with disabilities. Stephanie is always looking for new and innovative ways to reach out to the community and obtained her MSLIS from the University of Illinois in 2014. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you for having me.
My first question is, what is an MSLIS?
It is a Master's of Science in Library and Information Science.
I was going to keep saying MLIS, which is just library and information.
Well, that's what it is now, but when I graduated, it was an MSLIS, but now it's an MLIS, at least from the school that I graduated from.
Well, I learned already. It's exciting. Oh my gosh, this is so, I clearly didn't read your bio in advance, but if I wasn't already excited, that would have done it for me. Okay, so you went to school is that in Champaign?
I did. I got my master's degree at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
Where were you before that? How did you end up with a MSLIS?
So I went to Blackhawk for 2 years, and then I went to the ALA conference, I think in Chicago, so the American Library Association conference. And I was thinking about wanting to be a librarian, and there was a table there, and someone was tabling for U of I, and they're like, you should come here. And I was like, all right, well, then where should I go for my undergrad? And they said, Illinois State. And I was like, all right, I'll go there. So then I applied to Illinois State and I went there for 2 years. And then I did a dumb thing and only applied to one school for grad school and got in. So I went to University of Illinois and I was there for 2 years.
I love that University of Iowa was like, is that not what you?
No, I went to Illinois.
No, I thought you said the University of Iowa told you to go to Illinois State.
No, U of I, the University of Illinois told me to go to Illinois State for my undergrad.
The way I got it.
We are in Iowa, so when I say U of I, people think Iowa, but I grew up an Illinois girl, so when I say U of I, so I don't know.
I get that a lot. I went to college in Washington State, and I moved back here, and people talk about UW, and it's Wisconsin, and I'm like, what are you talking about? What is you didn't go to UW? That's not the colors. So now I feel silly. That's great. You got into the school. What I mean, yeah, I'd probably, I guess, advise applying to more than one, but like it worked out.
Yeah. Don't bank on one school.
So you're from the Quad Cities and you ended up with a job in a library in the Quad Cities?
I did.
That's like pretty hard to do, right?
Yes, library jobs are very, very competitive, and I graduated in May and I started this job in December. So I'm very thankful that I got a job where I grew up. So
yeah, I think I don't think I know any librarians, at least like my peers, who are even in a town remotely close to where they went to school, which I guess you're not really, but you know,
No,
that's wild. I people are I have a friend who had been looking at like other states for a while. I think he ended up in a job that he really loves, so it's great for him. Um, and relatively close to home for him. But that's yeah, when I've seen people graduate and they're like, I don't know, maybe I'll move to Texas. Like, probably not Texas.
I mean, I interviewed all over the country, but I ended up here.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad. And I'm
Me
acting like
too.
this is something that's happening to me and it's like years past. Many years past. 9 years. Oh,
I
that's
know
exciting.
it is. I don't feel like I am that old, if that makes sense. Like I don't.
I had that moment
Right.
just now when I was like 9 years ago. I I get that a lot actually. My mom said something to me yesterday and I was like, that was 20 years. Oh,
Yep.
it's too much.
Yep.
Okay, so why what was it that got you interested in being a librarian in the first place?
So initially, I wanted to be a teacher. I grew up in a family of teachers, a family of special ed teachers, and then regular teachers. And then my dad was on the school board for years. And I took one education class, disliked the teacher enough that I dropped the class and then changed my major to English. With a children's studies minor. And I was like, well, what can I do that will still involve me teaching, but I don't have to deal with parents, because the parents would call our house all the time to talk to my dad. And I was like, well, I can be a librarian because I can teach all ages. So that's what I landed in. And the cliche is that all librarians love books. And all we do all day is we sit at our desks and we read books. I would love to do that. That is not a thing. We don't just sit around and read all day. So
Yeah, I want that job. How do I get that job?
I don't know. That would be great.
You know, I used to think that you could review books and it would be like that. And I review books, and I gotta say, being required to read books is still being required to read books. That's not.
And it eats the joy out of it for you.
It's still homework. It's just paid homework.
Yeah.
So what do you do? And wait, first I want to say you do programs.
I do.
So can you tell us about that specific work?
Sure. So I am one of the adult programmers. So we have 3 different programming departments. Our youth services handles all of our children and teen programs. And then my department handles all of the adult programs. And then we have special collections, which is housed at our main library. And they handle like all of the local history programs, which are super duper cool. They're amazing. But I along with other people in my department, do the adult programming. So I do about 3 to 5 programs a month, sometimes more. Wide range of topics, so crafts to history to local authors to like clothing swaps, anything that sounds remotely cool and that I can figure out a way to do, I do.
I would guess it also doesn't have to sound that cool.
No, it doesn't. But another question I get is, how do I pick my programming ideas? Pinterest for crafts. I am not a crafty person. Outside of work, I will like hyper fixate on something for like 2 weeks and then I'll forget that it exists. So when I'm planning crafts for work, I'll just look online for something that I could do. And if it's something at a level that I could do, then I think any adult could do, because not crafty. And then I look at other libraries to see if they're doing anything fun or anything interesting. That's how I got the idea for a couple of my bigger programs that I've done in the past. And then sometimes I'll just look around my house and think, like, what do I have here that I could turn into a program? What do I need to get rid of? I had a whole bunch of formal wear left in my closet that I was never going to wear again. So that started our formal wear swap that I do every year, because I needed to clean out my closet. So I did that program. And then we're doing a jigsaw puzzle swap coming up in November that I found from another library. And I have a bookcase full of puzzles in my house. And I was like, well, I don't need any of these. I don't need any more.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I don't know. Like I can't do the same puzzle twice. It's like boring.
Yes, I can't do that. I know a lot of people that can, and I know all the pieces are there in mine. So I figure if I have a whole bunch of leftover puzzles, I bet a lot of other people do. So we're just gonna try it.
I love puzzles. I have a lot of cats, so I don't get to do puzzles anymore. It's like, it was one of my favorite things to like, I can't sit still really. So like if somebody's watching TV or if I want to watch TV, puzzle is great. Knitting is great. Like you, I don't stick with a project. So knitting is actually really great because I can forget about it for a year and come back to it. Or you leave a puzzle on the table for a year. That's a disaster waiting to happen.
Table with the cover. I have a puzzle table that has a cover and I just cover it up and stick it in the corner. And I think the one that I have in my living room right now, I haven't touched in like 3 or 4 months.
I still envy that. My cats will jump on it. It's like last time I tried, I had fewer cats. And they were like, what are you doing? Can I touch it? And it was all over. But I still, I will so be at that puzzle swap.
Middle of November. You can drop off puzzles the first 2 weeks, and then the swap I think is the 18th. And every puzzle you donate, you get a ticket.
Oh, sick.
For a new puzzle. We're trying the ticket system. I've never done the ticket system for any of the swaps that I've done. I've done Halloween costumes. I've done like holiday decorations and craft supplies. And we're gonna try it this way and see what happens.
Sorry, that noise gave me some worry. I've tried some ticketing things, but it's never been like a one-to-one.
Yeah.
But I would imagine it would, I mean, unless you lose your ticket.
Yeah. And
also,
we'll see what happens.
You know, some people will be like me and they'll give more than they take, and some people will take more than they, it'll all come out in the wash.
Yeah, because we also have a circulating puzzle and game collection. So I figured if there's any new ones that have all the pieces left over at the end, then I'll just donate those to the library, and then the selector of those can decide if we want them. It's just a way to clear out our houses and get more circulating items to the library.
I love that. And I also love that this is just how programming happens. I didn't know. But I feel like that's just kind of a lot of what I think about in life is like, how do I make use of blank?
Yes.
And also I love that Pinterest is like real.
I never thought I would use it as much in my adult life as I do now, but it's handy when you're not a crafty human and you need ideas. So
I would like to think of myself as crafty, but I'm very much like, there's just not a lot of skill scaffolding there for me. So that also was nice when you were like, if I can do it, anyone can do it. I know when I look at the programming calendar, I'm often like, oh, but that seems so obvious and smart. And now I feel like I got an inside look. My cat is laying on my notes. So I'm just kind of vamping right now. I apologize. Okay, got my notes. It's a really funny misspelling of the word entail. It's partially my handwriting and partially that I didn't cross the T, but it looks like it says inlail. Um, so did you want to get into programming? Is that part of the study, or was it
Yeah.
just what happened?
So when I was getting my master's degree, I initially wanted to be a children's librarian. So I did my practicum at the Moline Public Library, and then I did a couple other like internships at other libraries. And then when I started here, I was hired as an information services librarian, which is fine because I'd also worked in a nursing home library for a couple of years when I was in grad school, which was amazing. I never thought that I would enjoy it, but it was great. So when I was hired here, and I started part-time for a while, and then I was hired full-time, and I've always loved, so I call it seeing a need and filling a need. So when we work the desk, patrons come up and say, well, I need help with this. And my brain instantly goes, help you with that right now. But if you need it, someone else needs it. It's an immediate need. How can I make it and offer a thing that people will come to? And the gloriousness of libraries is that all of our programming is free. So we don't require you to pay to come to anything. We generally provide all the materials for everything. Obviously we pay like our speakers and presenters, but we're a free institution. So like I'm always down for ideas from people about what they want to see. But yeah, I love programming. I do some like outreachy type programs with the Handicap Development Center, and that was a see a need, fill a need, because I have been familiar with that organization prior to starting working here. And they come twice a month before the library opens, and they have free range to do whatever they want, be as loud as they want, for an hour. So when they first started, they got behind the scenes tours of the library. And so now it's awesome. I've been doing it for so long that they come in without having to have a program with me, and they know where things are, and they're comfortable asking someone with a lanyard that says Davenport Public Library for help. So I love programming. It's really fun. I always say, like, I'm not offended if no one comes to a program, because I'll just shelve it for 2 to 3 years and then I'll try it again. Maybe it fit a need when I was planning, but it doesn't fit that need right now. It's fine.
I know too, like thinking about see a need and fill a need, first of all, you've just like spoken your way into my heart. And that was, you said that and I was like, that's exactly the kind of person I want to be. Like, yeah. I did ask someone a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, but like, what am I going to be when I grow up? And I'm in my 30s. It's not like, it wasn't like, I asked this person when I was 12, what am I going to be when I grow up? I was just talking to somebody I thought was smart and feeling a little lost. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to learn everything. He said, be a librarian. And I didn't know like a programming specialist or whatever existed. And like, I don't know anything. I'm not a librarian. I don't know about librarians. But like hearing you talk about it, I'm like, yes, that is the dream. So thank you for your work.
Yeah, and I did steal that phrase from my spouse. He says it all the time. You need, fill a need. But like my job is not just programming, but there are other librarians who only, not here, but whose only job is programming. But we wear many hats in my department, not just programming.
I mean, I would guess that would have to be a really well-funded library situation in which everyone has a single job. But my understanding,
small where they only have one of each. I've seen it both ways. You're muted.
Would you believe my cat just muted me?
I figured.
That's so funny. How did you do that? You can't even see him, so it's so silly. That makes sense. I feel like the smaller, I guess, the more hats I assume one would have to wear, but it depends on the system and the situation. But also just like being observant and being compassionate. I'm sure that there are many more, you probably don't have to be that observant if someone's specifically telling you.
Again.
I don't know, his foot is on the number pad. I don't know how that works. I guess you probably don't have to be observant if someone's telling you exactly what they need, but I mean, that must make all the difference in figuring out how to meet a need. But you were saying you're not necessarily offended if nobody shows, but there is an aspect of how do I get the information about this program to the folks who need it. And I know, as someone in marketing, however limited my marketing work is, that's the hardest part.
I'm not in that department. I helped with it a little bit a couple years ago, but I am on our social media team. So like I do some stuff on Facebook and Instagram, but our outreach department is amazing. They reach out to a whole bunch of different like news organizations. Like I've been on the news before and talked about some of my programs. I've had the news come to some of my programs. We're in newspapers, the River City Reader. It's hard, man, to get people to come because this is we are so lucky in the Quad Cities that we have so many places that are providing resources for you. And I know when I moved away for the first time, I didn't realize that you couldn't just take your library card to any library within like a 30-mile radius and use it. So like I got a library card in college and I was like, I can only use it at this one, but there's a library like 10 miles down the road and it's not good there. Okay. So we are uniquely spoiled and so lucky. And so great to live here and have all these resources right at our fingertips.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me too. I know that I did a lot of moving around in my younger days, and I went to use like an online. I left the book I was reading at home, and I was out for the day. I was an on-call nanny, so it was like I was taking care of a kid who was sick and sleeping all day. So I wanted to read and I left the book at home. So I went to the online branch of the library I had most recently used, which was in a different state. And I couldn't use it because like they found my mail records and that I had moved. And I was like, man, I just want to read this book. And it was like, I remember this very, very specifically for some reason, that it was an S.E. Hinton book. So it was like not a book that should be hard to find. It wasn't The Outsiders. It was a different book by her, but it was like, you have it online. What is this? But I just didn't, I didn't realize that because I can go to, like, I work in the Rock Island Public Library, and I live in Davenport and I don't have issues doing that. And it's, there's things that you don't even know you're taking for granted. I would love to know, I've got some friends who work in prison libraries and really, really love it. But I didn't even know about nursing home libraries. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So it's funny that you mentioned prison libraries because I have a life goal of working in a prison library or a juvenile detention library, which is funny, tiny, very tiny woman. So when I tell people that, I always get a look of like, what, you? No. But yeah, so when I was in grad school, there was a very, very nice nursing home and they had a library. So a group of us went in a couple times a week and just helped with whatever they need. We would station ourselves in the library. We did a lot of tech help. So residents would come and be like, I need book recommendations, or I need like my printer stopped working, which is stuff that we can do, or like I need to learn how to use this app or whatever. And the people that lived there were like retired university professors, retired scientists, retired authors, like all these big intellectuals who were there. So I did that for 2 years. and they had like their own little library system in their library, their own like cataloging system. And it was probably one of the most influential library things that I've done. Just because I met so many smart people and they were just so nice and it was great.
I'm really happy you mentioned that. I feel like, I don't know why this has happened in our society, but like we assume that old people are like without faculties,
Yes.
which is the most depressing thing because like these
Yeah.
are the people who have given us everything we have.
Yes.
I know I worked, this is like not at all the same, but I worked at a Barnes and Noble once and all of the staff was, not all of the staff, like most of the staff though, it was like the coffee shop was young people and everyone else was either actively in education, like teachers and professors, or retired teachers and professors. And it's like, that made it the most incredible environment because everyone's excited about information. But I can't imagine, you know, being essentially shut away with all of this intellect and no outlet for it. That's so sad.
It's so funny because we would help them with tech things and they'd be like, oh, I don't know how this works, but then they'd like go off on all their like, oh, I'm a doctor in this and I know blah 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 all these things, and it's just like working on your assumptions and meeting people where they're at. And just because people don't know how to use a technology thing doesn't mean they're not smart in other ways, because technology changes like every 30 seconds, so you can't be expected to know everything. And I always say that like librarians know a little about a lot of topics, and if we don't know it, we can find the way to get that information for you. And then we'll probably go down a rabbit hole ourselves.
Now, librarians get an education in like how to research, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's the dream for me. I want to know how to know things.
Yes.
And I talk about skill scaffolding a lot. I've already said that term with you here today. But I think that's also something we really, really dismiss as necessary, especially like as a millennial, we grew up with the internet. So we watched it change and we're more or less adapting to it in real time. And of course, the people younger than us are doing a little more proficiently in that way. And the people older than us didn't start out with those skills. So I'm just defining skill scaffolding right now, just bear with me. So what I mean, because anytime I think I'm potentially using jargon, I like to talk through it. Anything that we do really in this life requires an amount of skill scaffolding. So there's the first step to gaining the skill, and then all the things that follow it that we don't notice because we're doing it in real time and getting used to it. But I know an uncle of mine, when he retired, he was a school teacher, a high school science teacher, but he had never really used the internet because he didn't need it. And when he retired, he started using the internet and just like he continues to fall down rabbit holes because he doesn't have the information literacy that the rest of us got at a young age to be able to tell the difference between reputable and non-reputable, for example. But yeah, with anyone who's not used to tech, which really does change, I mean, daily at the slowest, not having that skill is not an intelligence issue. That's I don't have the original foundation for following this up. Like I can't play video games because I never played them as kids, and they've changed so much. Like kids who started on Mario or whatever can play, you know, and have been playing all along, have no issues learning, where I don't even know what button I'm supposed to press. That's the example I like to use because it's confusing for people. So with that in mind, I want to go back to prison librarians. I know I used to work with unhoused youth, and there's an assumption there that those kids are bad kids, whatever that may mean. And I too am a small person. And folks would always be like, are you okay? But I really want to impress that people will meet your expectations, whatever they are. And so having low expectations, you're just damning yourself.
Yeah.
So with that,
assume that positive intent unless you're shown otherwise. And if you're shown otherwise, it just might be that that person's having a bad day. So
I love that so much. Ugh, you're so cool. I was going to say, I'm sure that comes in to your work a lot, because you work with the public and librarians in general. I would say, there are dozens of kinds of libraries, university and law and nursing home, apparently, and private libraries and all that. But generally speaking, when we think of librarians, we think of the public library. And so those librarians work with the public, and I must assume that people make those assumptions about your work as well when you have to work with the public, like, oh, those rowdy people. How do you address that?
like how other people are rowdy. I heard rowdy people and thought I'm not rowdy.
No, people who make assumptions about your patrons.
Well, like the media portrays librarians as white women, never cardigan wearing, glasses on, unmarried spinsters who just walk around and shush you the whole day. And all they do is shelve books and tell people no.
I do like telling people no. I'm joking.
We're not like that. Some of the funnest, well, yeah, I wear cardigans every day. Why not? I have one on right now. Like libraries have evolved so much from when they were first invented. So originally they were subscription services that white men had access to. And now we are one of the only institutions where you can walk in, use our services, and we don't expect anything from you. We don't care who you are, where you're from, what you need to do. Obviously, exception is if you need to get a library card to check out our materials because we want them to come back because it's taxpayer money based. But you can walk into a library, a public library, academic libraries are different, and do your business. We don't even need to know you're there. We protect your rights. We won't tell you people what you're checking out. We won't tell people if you're in the building, but it's so hard to overcome that stigma. And I think the best way that we can do that is just providing programs and content and services that people don't expect. Like we have a social worker in our library. People don't expect that, but we're the hub where the people who need her came to before we even had her. It's because we are seen as the people who can hook you up to the resources you need. So yeah.
I was thinking about bringing that up because it's one of my favorite things is it's recent, I would say, push for libraries to have social workers. And I actually just found out I've been working with your social worker's daughter at the Writing Center. She's so cool. She's like the coolest kid I know. And I really shouldn't say that in public. I know a lot of cool kids. She's so cool. And that added something for me to be like, oh, this social worker is like a real person. I've met her, but like not really, yeah. So you saw a need and you filled it as a library. I know bigger cities have been doing that for longer, but that's another thing that I think we probably take for granted here in this area, that like maybe Rock Island doesn't have it. I don't know if Rock Island has one, but Davenport does. And there is, I mean, it would be a long walk, but you could walk from one library to the other. I've probably done it. That's the nerdiest thing I've ever said. I meant from Rock Island to Davenport, but I might now walk from one library to the other. Okay, so you wanted to be a teacher. I also wanted to be a teacher and fell out of that. What did you study then in undergrad?
English and children's studies.
Children's studies. Yeah. And you wanted to be a children's librarian. Sorry, that was a weird sound I made. I know that, but it's just things that we have in common. And what other things do you see librarians studying as undergrad students? I imagine that it's not limited like you see in some other fields. Like I can't go into, I don't know,
Literally
film
anything.
studies with it if I were studying biology I have no idea.
I mean, your undergrad doesn't matter. I mean, like if you know, like you said, film studies, if you know you want to be a film librarian, then you can get your undergrad in film studies and then get your master's in library and information services or studies. But that so where I went to get my degree also offers like museum studies. So if you want to be a curator, I could have done that, which I thought about, but I wanted to do this instead. But your undergrad doesn't matter. I know librarians that have history, like a foreign language minor, film studies, like motion picture studies, because there's librarians at like Disney World and all those different places, like curators and librarians.
There are.
Yeah, there's cruise ship librarians, librarians literally anywhere. I just was already on the English studies track, and I knew I could graduate with that degree in 2 years, and I had enough credits already to get a children's studies minor, and I did like supplement with a lot of like women's and other type of studies in that vein, but I had enough to fit that, and I was like, okay, well then I guess that's what I'm getting, because I already have enough, and if I already have enough, then I can take classes in other things that aren't really related, and it's fine. But yeah, you don't have to have a certain degree.
I was thinking when I said the film studies thing, like it would be hard to go into medicine if that was or it would just take more steps. But I assumed what you said, which is that like it's vocational, right? It's not, I'm called to study the thing I'm passionate about, and it will feed into my work in libraries. That is so cool. Can you tell me a little bit? I know I'm like I've abandoned my notes. But can you tell me first about there's an app, right? That's something that you work on.
An app that I work on? Or is
the online reading challenge. Is that Davenport doesn't have a Beanstack, does it?
We have a Beanstack. So Beanstack is an app that we use for
I'm on Beanstack in Bettendorf, Des Moines, and Rock Island, but not Davenport. I feel really stupid now.
It's not stupid. Myself and all of my imaginary children and pets and family members are logged into Beanstack accounts. I use that to show people things. So Beanstack is what we used for like our summer reading program and all of our different challenges throughout the year. So right now is Hispanic Heritage Month. It runs September 15th through October 15th. So we are doing a reading challenge for that month. If you participate, log your reading, do some activities, you can earn badges that you can put through for a prize. We've got 5 or 6 of those scattered throughout the year, not counting like our winter reading program and our summer reading program. We'll have another one starting November 1st. And then like our 1,000 books before kindergarten program is run through there, which is the most adorable program I've ever seen. There's pictures of the kids in the libraries. If they've read 500 or 1,000 books, if they've completed, they get their picture taken and put up. They get prizes, different incentive levels. But yeah, we have Beanstack. It's great. Online reading challenge. will eventually become a Beanstack thing. I'm hoping that'll happen next year. I finalized the theme for next year. So that is primarily run through our blog. It's our Info Cafe blog. I post content on it Monday through Friday. It's reviews, it's book lists. We have a social worker spotlight, just content that the library puts out. And then every month for the online reading challenge, so it's for the whole calendar year, January through December, we pick a theme. This year's theme is location, location, location. So we read a book related to the theme. This month is Iceland. So we're reading, the featured book is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I've already read it. You can read any book you want. I post about it at the beginning of the book, saying like what the theme is. Here's the book. And then at the end of the month, I'll tell you like what I read, what I liked, what I didn't like. We do that for the whole calendar year. Yeah, it's fun. I love it. I took that over from one of our librarians who retired. Like I said, I have plans to put it on Beanstack. There's displays for all those months at all of our buildings, but yeah.
That is something that I do like about Beanstack, or at least in my experience. It's more theme-based, not so book clubby.
Yes, that's like the online reading challenge is an online book club. We don't have to read the same book. You can watch a movie set in Iceland. You can listen to a CD that's like based in Iceland. I'm just putting out a new thing that you might not be aware of. And I'm giving you a list. I
appreciate that as someone who, I mean, my work is in the arts, but my work is in the literary arts. So I tried to always be expanding. I don't know what I don't know, and that's a really important thing to acknowledge in the arts, I think, right? We self-select, right? And that's something we talk about in regard to like book banning. Like kids aren't going to pick things usually outside of their depth. And if I'm self-selecting, I don't know, like I'm not going to pick outside of my comfort zone or outside of my knowledge. So having something like that, like Iceland is a great example, because it's not something, so I'm just gonna make myself look crazy while I'm talking. It's not something that I think about very often. And a few years ago, I met with an author from Iceland, and that was the first time, it occurred to me to, and that's not, I don't want to, like, I didn't just ignore Iceland. It just didn't come across my path, and I didn't realize that it didn't come across my path. So yeah, as somebody who's always trying to figure out what I don't know so that I can engage with it, so that I can work with it when I work with artists or the community, having theme-based things is really, really helpful. Plus, everyone doesn't know what they don't know. And then I assume the seed library is really just a warm weather situation, but I mean, seeds keep. I don't mean that they don't, but can you tell us about that?
I can. So actually, Rock Island, Bettendorf, and Davenport all have seed libraries. Ours, unfortunately, is not on the public floor right now. It needed some maintenance. So I pulled it at the end of September, but it sits in an old card catalog. And we have flowers, herbs, vegetables, microgreens, and collections. And collections are like themed packets of things. So if you don't know what you want to plant, you can come in and pick up like a salsa or like a bouquet flower thing. Collection of seeds. There's 4 or 5 different ones. It will be back out it lives at Maine on the public floor, March, end of February, beginning of March. And that keeps it current with what Rock Island and Bettendorf do. Rock Island's is out March through end of September. Bettendorf's is just spring and summer. But we have content related to that online. We have a seed library growing companion that you can, and we have books related to the topic. And the best part of that is we don't require a library card. We obviously take seeds back from the community if no one wants them, and we could add them into the seed library. But we have a little budget for that we buy seeds from Seed Savers and Johnny's, and then we package them into smaller packages and then put them out. And then we have binders of information about the different types of seeds. So
I'm so happy
per
you use
household.
Seed Savers. I'm betting you know this, but I don't think most people know this, but Seed Savers started in Iowa. And it is an effort to maintain biodiversity, which the food that we buy at the store, and especially in this country, but throughout the planet, tends to be just one or two breeds of a plant, where there used to be, you know, thousands of kinds of corn, thousands of kinds of potatoes is especially interesting. There used to be a lot of potatoes. And Seed Savers is an effort to maintain that, which is good for the planet. It's good for our bodies. And also it's cool to be like part of history. So that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I love Seed Savers, but you brought up like the different types of plants. Not many people know this, but we are also a United States Patent and Trademark Office Patent and Trademark Research Center. So we have a patent librarian.
That's so cool.
Myself and another librarian are his backups. So like I went out to DC and I went to the conference, but we have plant patents on file at this building.
That is so cool.
There's color photos of flowers in there. I have a box. So like looking at what we have in our office, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. When I went to the conference, they were like, you can take boxes of old plant patent photos home with you if you want. So I shipped a box of them back here. Well, they shipped back here for me. So I have a box, plant patent photos in my office that I'm trying to figure out how to do programming. But yeah, we are PTRC through the USPTO.
I have this book I just picked up called, I want to say it's called American Wildflowers. I'm gonna look that up quick. It's edited by a woman named Susan Barba, and it is it's literary content surrounding American wildflowers. She talks in the intro about why she uses the term wildflower. But I bet that there's some cool overlap there. It's about both like native plants and non-native plants. It does talk about like the difference between invasive and non-invasive non-native plants. I gotta find the title. Yeah, it's called American Wildflowers, a literary field guide, but I bet, and it also has paintings of the plants based on like I don't know, whatever the plant equivalent of the Audubon Society is, you know?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I couldn't not bring that up with that. I bet there's some really fun overlap work to be done there. I met her recently, so that's also cool. I'm like taking up all of your time, but there's so much more I want to talk to you about.
You can ask me more questions. I don't have to be anywhere for.
Sweet. Oh my gosh. What is a patent librarian?
So we are the only patent and trademark research center. No, that might not be true anymore. The University of Iowa might have opened one, but we have access to certain patent databases that other libraries do not. So like we can't advise you on your patents, but we can point you to the resources if you're looking to like patent a product, because you need to look at like if that product's already been made, if it's registered, if it's trademarked, if it's patented, what are the intellectual rights to it, if it's too similar to something that's already been made, if it's like the name you're thinking of. We do a lot. The USPTO has a very good website that helps to explain all these differences, which honestly, I had no idea I didn't know what a patent librarian did before I became like the backup to the backup patent librarian. But that website is very helpful in helping to explain all the differences. I know just enough to be dangerous. But
I meant to ask you all these programming questions, but I just get so excited.
well, what other things?
So
I can answer program.
if I wanted to do a program, I know I've talked to you about this in real life, but not for Zoom. If I, Joe the plumber wanted to do programming at the library or with the library, what would that look like?
There is a form on our website that you can fill out. What is it called? You can fill out like so it's on our website, it's called Propose a Program. So if you're like an outside person and none of us have contacted you because maybe we don't know how awesome you are and that you have a unique skill set that you can bring to us, you can fill out that proposal form, and then that will eventually end up to the programming librarian that can help you. So it's on our website, it's davenportlibrary.com. If you go to, there's a blue banner bar at the top. There's an option that says About Us, and then below that, there'll be something that says Contact Us. And I think it's at like the very bottom, it'll say Propose a Program.
I'm gonna put that link in. I'm glad that you gave me those instructions. So I was just sort of lost in the library website.
I'm a librarian. I will direct you to the.
So I'll put this link in our comment section.
Yeah, so we plan far in advance to give our publicity enough time to get out there and to get noticed, and so that our patrons have enough time to plan to come to our events. So right now we're planning for spring, March, April, and May, and with a deadline of beginning of November for our proposals. So keep that in mind also if you want to propose a program, that we're like 6 months out. So we can keep your idea in mind if it doesn't fit with our timetable right now, but yeah, I'm always down like for a thing that you think we should do. I will definitely talk to you about it because I very rarely say no. It can't hurt anything to try it.
Now, I know you personally, I assume this is like all librarians because of the ALA, are excited about banned books. Now, banned books week was last week. We had 15 readers at our readout. I know, it was awesome. We actually had to turn people away. One of our readers was 4 years old. It was incredible. And I have talked to you on your podcast about banned books. Also have a link to the podcast in our comments here. Can you tell me why banned books as a subject matters and or your favorite? I can say if you'd like, I can preface this. I talk a lot about banned books as access to information and access to freedom of expression, both of which, not both of which, access to freedom of expression is a protected First Amendment right. Access to information is not.
We as librarians fight for your right to be able to read whatever you want, to be able to look up information, whatever you want. Banned Books Week was launched in 1982 because there was this sudden surge of challenges to books in schools and libraries and bookstores. So usually it's held like end of September, beginning of October. And basically what we're doing is we are talking about the value of free and open access to information to anyone. So it brings together like the whole community to talk about how you have the freedom to see yourself in a book, the freedom to read whatever you want. And the theme this year was Let Freedom Read. I've always been a proponent of reading whatever you want. I grew up with parents who didn't monitor what I read. At least I don't think that they did. I was let loose in the library at a very young age. My elementary, junior high, high school librarians just let me read, check out whatever I wanted. My favorite banned book, the one that introduced me to banned books is Of Blood and Chocolate. I can never remember the author, but it's a young adult book about werewolves. It's just called Blood and Chocolate. It's by Annette Curtis Klaus. It was a paranormal romance that was released in 1997. It's great. It's a teen girl who is a werewolf who falls in love with this guy, and then he figures out that she's a werewolf, and so he decides that he needs to try and kill her.
Oh my goodness. I feel like you didn't give that last piece of information last time we talked.
I didn't, but that is the book that introduced me to banned books. And it's important to note that, like, if you see a banned book display everywhere or like posts online, it's not librarians saying, these are the books that we have banned in our library, and we're just posing with them to show you that you can't access them.
No, that's a good thing to say.
We may lock them up in dog cages for shock value. We may put caution tape around them, but it's just to show you that these books have been banned or challenged in schools, libraries, bookstores, all around the United States. So yeah, I love Banned Book Week. It's my favorite time of year. It's like my Christmas. I think I actually get more excited for Banned Book Week than I do for any other holiday. But
it's the best. You get to talk about people trying to steal your rights. I want to note, in the US, technically speaking, at a national level, book banning is illegal. Yeah, I said technically. We talk about, I think that gets really confusing for people, like the layman. And also, when someone challenges a book, it's usually either at their library or their school. And what that means is they want to have that book taken out so that folks cannot access it. The state of Illinois recently banned that practice. They banned banning books, which is really, really cool. Technically speaking, this is I'm saying technically because there's lots of wiggle room with anything. We live with protections in this country from book banning. However, one, anytime someone makes enough of a fuss, people get scared, and books might actually be locked up somewhere, and you have to ask for special permission, and that's really awkward. Or they are effectively taken out. There was I think it was like Waterloo. There's a town in Iowa that used AI to ban books, and it worked. Which not only means that like no one's reading these books and then saying they're offensive, they've just decided. But also lots of other places in the world have government entities that are banning books. A few years ago at our banned books reading, we had translator Shamini Kulatunga came to speak with us. She was a grad student in the translation program at the University of Iowa at the time, and her work was specifically translating banned books from Sri Lanka into English so that more people would have access to these works. So this is a real and ongoing, I'm getting so many emails during this call, an ongoing and real problem in the world. And sometimes we think about the bubble we live in. So I like to note that this is, that was a really cool opportunity to hear somebody speak about their personal experience with book banning, and their work to fight against it. And this is not, I mean, she's a smart and intelligent, active person who saw something and wanted to know why. And what she read to us from her translation was like very, very vanilla as far as I could tell. It was like, it came out, the book was originally banned quite a while ago, like decades ago, but still. Very scary. There's something else I wanted to ask you about banned books. I just got so excited remembering Shamani's work. Oh, yes. I was also thinking about self-selecting, right? I know I read books above my comprehension as a kid, and they were above my comprehension. I didn't know what was going on. I want to say, shoot, I'm trying to remember. I read To Kill a Mockingbird really young, and I had just no idea what was going on. And it's not like I was unaware that there was like some discussion of racism or whatever, but I was just like, I don't know, some kids live in a town and there's racism. It wasn't at all, there was no controversy in my brain to process, or no like deep things to process. So I also think it's important to know when we talk about banned books, like people are trying to, I don't know, put age restrictions on things, and truly people self-select very well. Related to that, we also have like with like content warnings and trigger warnings, people get confused and upset about those, but like, we have ratings on our movies and on our TVs and on our video games, and those function exactly the same way as content warnings. Before you, especially with streaming, before you see the show, it says at the top in the corner like coarse language and graphic content or whatever, because we see that in challenges to books. We see, well, this talks about blank, but like, why wouldn't we just preface it that way and we can move forward with our lives?
And some books do. Some books start with content and trigger warnings, and that's important to pay attention to, because there's that saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. Some of the books with the most vanilla, prettiest covers have been some of the most challenged and banned books that I've seen, and you wouldn't guess that based on what they look like.
Yeah.
I always want to say that you can control what you read. You can control what your kids read. But if you hype up something that it's challenged, you're just putting a spotlight on the thing and making it more interesting, and you're bringing more light to the thing. So
yeah, and a lot of the times the conversation will do the trick.
Yep.
Now I am running out of time. I apologize. I still have lots of questions that I'd like to ask you. So I hope maybe you'll consider coming back. I'm going to now transition into upcoming events. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for hanging out with me. Please let me know, Stephanie, let me know if there's more stuff, more resources we should look into, more things that I should have asked you. And please let me know if there's anything I missed right now.
I don't think so. I can always come back on and talk about anything. I mean, our calendar of events, we have our October calendar of all of our programs in our buildings. You can access the programs we have coming up through our website. Follow us on our social media. We advertise our programs there. I'm excited.
And we will, I have linked your website on this Facebook chat, and it will be in the YouTube as well in the video description. But I'll be doing regular posting in the next couple of days, tagging Davenport libraries and their programs. So please keep a lookout on that, because I'm having a great time here. Okay, upcoming events with Midwest Writing Center. On Saturday, we're going to be at Iowa City Book Festival at the book fair. That's at the Merge. It's called Merge. It's like a co-work space. Come hang out with us, see what we're doing. We've got our chapbook series is accepting submissions through December 31st. I've got full guidelines on our website and on our socials. Chapbooks are super small books. Generally, they have maybe like 60 pages. Generally, they follow a theme, but not necessarily prose, poetry, whatever you've got going on, we will be happy to read. We're not looking for illustrations or translations at this time. We also just released the 2021 selection for the Foster Stall Chapbook series. It's called For a Second in the Dark. You can check out my interview with Alec Hirschman, the author, on our YouTube channel in the Write More Light playlist. We've also, I'll be posting videos of his release party here in the next few days. I've got lots of videos from that, so I'll be doing them slowly. Okay. Wednesdays through the rest of October, we're having our Wednesday night free writes. That's for middle school and high school students who want a place to hang out with their peers, do some writing, use the internet, do some printing, whatever it is. We're open to it. Upcoming Write More Lights will be on pitching workshops, developing lesson plans, writing for a rainy day. The first and third Saturday of every month, we've got Writers Studio. Now that is both online and in person, but those are separate events. They are not hybrid. That's our workshop group. So come with your works in progress and participate in some critique. We want to help your work be the thing that you envision. We're not going to tell you our taste and ask you to change your writing for it. My goodness. That's what I've got for the rest of the month. I can't believe there's not more than that. There will be, of course, more in November and December. We've got some workshops coming up. And we do have a vacancy on our board of directors. If folks are interested in that, you can message us or email us, mwc@mwcqc.org. Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you for hanging out with us today. Let us know what if you've got any more questions for Stephanie, for librarians, for me, any content you want us to cover on the web series or in our socials. Let us know if we use any jargon that you'd like to find. And I'd like to leave you with a free write. Please set your timers for 5 minutes when you do this. Write as much comes to you, or not. No prescriptive plans here. 5 minutes is just a good amount of time we found for a free write. I want you to think about a nickname you have had, a nickname you would like to have, or a nickname someone else had that that occurs to you in this moment, and write into that, whatever that means to you. As always, please write more light into your life. Thanks for hanging out with us.